What's up, guys? It's Dan from Coin Bureau Trading. Today, we're going to talk about a super fascinating topic, and that's the inverse correlation between gold and altcoins. Basically, that gold prices can predict altcoin seasons. If this is the kind of content that you enjoy, then be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ping that notification bell. Before we get started, do keep in mind that nothing in this video is financial advice. It's just my personal analysis of the crypto market. Your analysis could be different, and if it is, that's awesome, because the more difference of opinion that we have, the better traders and the better investors we're all going to become. So I'll just start off, guys, by just reading out what I'm basically going to be explaining today. I actually explained it in a research feed post. I kind of have this series going on in the Coin Bureau Club called History Doesn't Repeat, but It Does Rhyme. And I kind of try and find like these really interesting correlations, like DXY and altcoin season, or like a Russell 2000 and altcoin season, stuff like that. And one that I found recently, which is super fascinating, is of course gold and altcoins, gold and altcoin season specifically. So let me just read out this post, because it sets the stage for what we're going to be talking about today. So I was listening to a macro podcast the other day, and the guest said that gold had recently had a pullback. So I decided to check the gold chart, since I hadn't done that in a while, and I came across some very interesting stuff. Gold's rally from 2024 to 2025 looks almost identical to the gold rally from 2019 to 2020. More importantly, gold seems to be inversely correlated to altcoins on longer time frames. This makes perfect sense if you think about it. Whereas gold is the ultimate safe haven, altcoins are the riskiest bets. They are literally polar opposites. As such, a top in gold likely means a bottom in altcoins, whereas a bottom in gold likely means a top in altcoins. If we assume this to be the case, all we need to do is find the altcoin season and altcoin top is to figure out where and when gold could bottom. It turns out that this is easy to figure out using the Bollinger Bands on the weekly and monthly timeframes. When gold fell below the weekly Bollinger Band moving average in November 2020, this corresponded to a massive altcoin season, specifically a huge rally in others. Gold finally found a bottom around the monthly Bollinger Band moving average in March 2021, which is exactly when others topped out after almost a 10x rally. I mean, it was roughly a few weeks off, but we'll get to that in a second. Obviously, others went on to hit higher highs in November 2021, so this is not a perfect indicator, obviously. Even so, consider that gold is, or rather was, close to breaking the weekly Bollinger Band moving average for the first time during its 2024 to 2025 rally. And as I film this, it's on the brink of breaking below this level again. And if it does break below this level, then this is likely to correspond to an altcoin season. If history repeats, then altcoin season will peak when gold finds support, likely around the monthly Bollinger Band moving average, which is currently around $2,700 to $2,800. What could be different this time? Two things as far as I can tell. The first is that the drawdown in gold could happen much faster due to leverage. The consensus view is bullish gold and go long. And the second is that the catalyst for the bottom in gold may also be bearish for altcoins. Like, it could be some kind of like a deflationary shock that basically takes all markets lower, altcoins and gold combined. And of course, again, guys, this is the type of stuff I'm covering in the Coin Bureau Club every single day. That's where you'll find deep dives into small cap altcoins, which we do every single week. The way that we choose these altcoins is we basically let our members vote on which altcoins we review. We have a research feed where I'm sharing these types of insights. We have a team portfolio page where you'll find all the cryptos that we hold, as well as the cryptos we're considering buying. And we have an exclusive deals page where you can find basically a whole bunch of tools that'll help you in your research, and also a members Discord where you can ask us questions, and where you can also see these posts, the one that I just showed you guys. Now, heading to the gold chart, this is where things get very interesting. And for the time being, we're looking at gold here on the weekly, and I want you guys just to focus on the red arrows for now, because we're basically looking at here basically the breakdowns in gold and how they potentially correspond to altcoin seasons. One thing I will need to caveat is that this is something that we, I guess, don't necessarily have that much evidence for. Like in 2017, the breakdown in gold, like, yes, it technically did happen, but of course gold started rallying in basically later in 2017 and into early 2018. So it had this really weird thing where basically the breakdown in gold below the Bollinger Band moving average on the weekly did trigger the start of altcoin season in 2017, but it didn't really do a good job of marking the end of altcoin season in 2017. But again, we'll go through things one step at a time, again, starting with just like the breakdown, again, below the Bollinger Band moving average, this middle line. So again, in 2017, we get a break below the Bollinger Band moving average on gold in November 2017, and that corresponds to an altcoin season. In 2021, we get a big breakdown below the Bollinger Band moving average on gold, around November again, and then that corresponds to a huge altcoin season that basically lasts into April, May roughly, and of course into that final month, then gold actually starts rallying again. But again, we'll come to that a little bit later. And then of course in the modern day now, it looks like gold is about to break below the Bollinger Band moving average on the weekly. It looks like it's about to have a huge squeeze squeeze. I'm sure a lot of people think that it's going to be a squeeze to the upside. It totally could be. I'm not a gold trader. I'm not like a, I mean, I'm a fan of gold, obviously, like, but I'm not a gold trader. So if you believe that there's going to be a squeeze to the upside, sure. But in my view, and this is, I guess, kind of like a hot take, the main reason why gold has been pushed up so much has to do with like geopolitical and political uncertainty and whatever. And if we do see, something like a ceasefire in the war in Ukraine, or even just a drop in interest rates or something like that, or a peace deal, whatever you want to call it, then this could logically take gold lower, especially because so many people are long gold. Again, like what I mentioned in that post, so many people are long gold. Everyone is bullish gold. The consensus view seems to be a bullish gold. When I look at this chart, what I see is almost like a head and shoulders pattern forming after a long distribution, that's been multiple months in the making. This looks like, maybe we could get like one more big spike up and then a drop down, some kind of like white coffee in distribution. But point being is that even looking at this most recent weekly candle, that's a bearish engulfing. Granted that we've seen bearish engulfings before and gold recovered from that, it does suggest that gold is on the brink potentially of falling below this Bollinger Band moving average on the weekly, which again would historically correspond, given where we are in the cycle, to an altcoin season. And of course, the thing that's quote unquote different this time is that this breakdown can happen, by the end of August, whereas in previous cycles, that breakdown in gold had started in November, right? And of course, could this time be the same and we see gold rally up higher and then the breakdown comes in November? Sure. But again, just based on what the charts are suggesting now, it looks like that breakdown again in gold could happen in the next couple of weeks. And it would be basically as a result of, again, assuming that gold is like this maximal risk off, whereas altcoins are risk on, then a breakdown in gold would be basically because something has happened that has made risk on conditions go crazy. And of course, that's going to be very beneficial to altcoins. And again, just to drive the point home, looking here at others on the weekly, same thing. So we go back in time here, you can see November 2017, the moment that gold started breaking down is the moment that altcoins started rallying. Going to 2021, again, there was a little bit of a lag here. November 2020, you saw basically a breakdown in gold, and then altcoins, took a couple of weeks there, but then altcoins eventually started rallying, and well, we'll get to where they topped out in a second. And then again, going now into the modern day, it looks like we're going to see this kind of a local top potentially in gold, this breakdown in gold, and a trigger in altcoin season, of course, happening in the next couple of weeks here. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, moving on now, I guess, to the green candles here, which is, of course, looking at where gold could bottom, and then, of course, how that would correspond to a top in altcoins. So let's zoom out here to the monthly, and I might as well do it on the other chart as well here. Apologies if anything is confusing for you guys here. I know it's a little bit complicated, and again, it's not exact. It's just like a really interesting thing that I noticed. Again, like, I'll be the first to admit that it looks like there's a few weeks off, like potentially a few weeks of a lag or whatever, but especially in the previous cycle, this correlation seems to be very clear, at least to me. So again, now we're looking at the green candles. So when gold fell to the Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly, specifically when it started bouncing from that level, that's when you saw a top for altcoins. So we saw that again in January 2018, we saw that in May of 2021, like again, it gets a bounce from this level, and then that's when altcoins basically topped. And then here, potentially, again, when you look at the distance between these, well, in the previous cycle, I think it was a little bit extended, but you could say that we have a time difference of roughly 2 to 3 months, maybe 4 months, 5 months max, that you would be looking, let's say at the earliest in sometime in October, latest, let's say sometime November, December, that you would see gold fall to this Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly, which again would potentially mark a top in altcoins. But again, as I mentioned in this research feed post, what we could see that's quote unquote different this time is that the reason why gold gets that kind of that breakdown to the Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly could be because of some bearish catalyst that takes all markets lower. So what we could see happen is that we get 1 or 2 months, let's say, of gold falling, and initially that's just because of some risk on move, right? Like everyone is moving out of gold and into risk assets. But then that like third or fourth month, like when we're heading into, let's say, November, December, that the third or fourth month lower in gold is because there's some liquidations happening and everything is being sold, whether it's stocks, crypto, gold. People forget that in I guess like a black swan events, like whatever you want to call them, liquidation events, that everything gets sold, and the stuff that's up the most tends to get sold first. And of course, a lot of people are up on gold, so you would see potentially a lot of people selling out of gold. Even though it is technically a safe haven, in the short term, they'd probably be fleeing from gold into bonds, which some people could say that's exactly what the administration wants. Moving on now to altcoins, again, same idea. You could see that. I guess I should move this arrow here a little bit over. Again, when gold started bouncing from the Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly, that's when altcoins topped in January 2018. When gold started bouncing from the Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly, that's when altcoins topped in May 2021. And I do think again that we're going to see something similar here with altcoins topping again, likely in my opinion, sometime in October. And of course, again, I believe that gold could continue heading lower into the end of the year, but that this would be due to some kind of a basically some huge risk event that basically causes forced selling and essentially everything. So yeah. But I guess, again, key point being is that, just to quickly recap, look at the gold chart on the weekly, slap on the Bollinger Bands. When you see a break below the Bollinger Band moving average on the weekly for gold, this is a strong signal that we're going to see altcoin season starting very soon. And of course, this looks like it's about to happen. And then to get a sense of where altcoins will top using gold, again, like this kind of inverse correlation, altcoins would top, historically speaking, when gold falls to the Bollinger Band moving average on the monthly, which again is quite a ways down. But of course, in this case, and as I've been saying, I think that the kind of like you could say that for that full drop down to the Bollinger Band moving average, that final kind of like 1 or 2 months, that final like lower, you could say, in gold would be caused by something bearish, not a kind of like risk off move that is causing capital to rotate into risk assets. At that point, you would see basically capital rotating basically into safe havens, specifically stuff like bonds. So who knows, maybe like the first drop here to like 2,900 or 3,000 or something. I heard that's a target that a lot of people are watching. Maybe I'll zoom in here on the daily. Yeah, so to get a drop down, let's say somewhere to around 3,000, right, which is a key psychological level, maybe that initial drop lower would correspond to an altcoin season, like going into, let's say, October roughly. And then after that, when you get that continuation lower into 2,800, 2,700, that's where you would get really this like some mass like, sell off, risk off, or like, safe haven flight event. And of course, I do think that gold would head higher after that. That would probably mark the local low somewhere around 2,700, 2,800, potentially sometime later this year. And again, I'll reiterate, I guess, again, that I'm not a gold trader. I apologize if any of this is confusing. I know it's a little bit like nuanced, but again, key takeaway being breakdown in gold historically corresponds to basically a takeoff in altcoins, and a bottom in gold historically corresponds to a top in altcoins. And again, the thing that is quote unquote different this time is that this breakdown in gold could start a little bit sooner, and the ending of that breakdown could be due to some mass sell-off event that also hits altcoins as well. But it's just an interesting thing that I thought I would share, and I hope you guys did find that information helpful. And if you did, then be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, ping the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one.